Welcome, data people. We are Zuma. My name is Matt, and this is the Data for Good podcast. This podcast is brought to you by Zuma. Zuma is a dedicated recruitment company focusing on data positions across Berlin. The Data for Good podcast is for the world of data science, analytics, and engineering, giving you a platform to hear the thoughts and opinions of data leaders from Berlin and beyond. Today, we're joined by Valentin Umbach, analytics lead at Komoot. Valentin, welcome. How are you?
I'm fine, and hey Matt, happy to be here today with you. Thanks for the invitation.
Not a problem at all. A fellow podcaster as well. Tell us a little bit about your own podcast.
Yeah, that's right. It's funny to be on the other side this time because I've done it quite a while as the host. I have a podcast also on the topic of analytics. It's called Analytics Anonymous. I've started it a bit over a year ago. And yeah, I talk with other analytics folks about their experiences, their ideas, best practices, and how to tackle the challenges that we all face in this field, basically. And it's a lot of fun. For me, it's the reason I do it is personally I enjoy just learning from other people and sharing these experiences. And that's, I hope, what I'm get to do a bit today as well.
Yeah, self-learning. Hopefully a lot of people learn as well, asking different questions, different people. Thoroughly enjoyable. And we still continue to do it, both of us. So long may it continue. You've had quite the career within analytics. What would you say still fascinates you from the domain?
So maybe I'll share a bit about my career, my background, how I got into this field for the people who don't know. So I originally come from a background in psychology and neuroscience, which is maybe seems a bit far away from working in tech and data, but it's not as far away actually. I think because if you study psychology, you learn a lot about statistics, and if you work in neuroscience, you work a lot with large data sets, in fact, and you work with tools like R or Python to analyze these data sets. So the skills are quite close, and it's when you think about career paths into data in general, just going a bit away from my own personal experience, it's not that uncommon either to come from a field of either science like natural sciences or social science background, even obviously business backgrounds. I've met people working in data with coming from basically almost any background in terms of what they've learned originally. So I started in psychology and neuroscience, then had some time working in consulting, and that's where I slowly transitioned into adapting and kind of using these skills, the skill set, and also these interests that I had in in a more applied context, I would say, and then started working as a data scientist and eventually leading data teams and analytics teams at various companies in the mostly, or I would say, I think even exclusively in the mobile app space. So I've worked for many years at a mobile dating app, Lavu in Germany. And I think that was also not a coincidence because for me, this was a perfect match for my interests, both working with data as a data scientist, analyzing data and helping improve products with that, but also my background as a psychologist and trying to understand human behavior and also improving not only the digital products but also the real life experiences that people have with the help of these products. So that's always been kind of where my interests really overlap between let's say the human aspect, human behavior, trying to better understand it and trying to also maybe improve these experiences with the help of data and technology. And so that's what also drew me to my current role at Komoot, where I work now as a data lead, analytics lead, leading a team of currently seven people, data engineers, analytics engineers, data analysts. Komoot is an app for outdoor adventures where people can discover and plan and then also go out on adventures on their bike or hiking or running, and then also share it with other people. It's that place when a digital product like an app meets the real life, and in this case, an outdoor experiences, where I really see my passion, where I like to work in this space.
And excuse the pun of it being a match for you at Lavu from the psychology and the app. The journey that you've had going through up to leading an analytics team, it sounds like you're really passionate about bringing that data to the real world. When you decided to move away from the psychology and more into the data, was it by choice or was it by opportunities presenting themselves? Tell us a little bit more about that choice.
Oh, that's a good question. So it was definitely by choice. I mean, for some time I certainly had the plan, and I was working on a career in academia, in academic research, basically. So I did a PhD in neuroscience, and I had the idea that I would continue down that path, and I really enjoyed that work. And there were several reasons why at some point I then decided against that. And I wanted to, and I was looking for alternatives where it was maybe a bit more applied, like a bit more, related to real life. Because to be honest, a lot of the academic research is very far removed from having impact on people's real lives. And that was just something that was really interesting to me. And I was really very actively looking into, on the one hand, first I realized, okay, there's this field of, data science and working in data where the skill set matches very well with what I have. But then I was trying to look for, are there roles, are there companies, are there, opportunities that are also aligned with my interests as well, and not just maybe there are a lot of opportunities working in data, and there's nothing I won't say anything against working in an e-commerce setting, or just working in a with some very technical challenges that are super interesting, working with data, but maybe just not what really motivates me personally. And so I found this in the dating world. And I also have to call out, now that that I'm thinking about it, there was one book in particular that I want to call out here, written by the founder of OkCupid, which was one of the original dating websites and dating apps. Christian Rudder, I believe his name, and he wrote a book about insights that he got analyzing their own data. Basically, that was at a time when I think data protection was not as strict as it is today. He published a book about it. It was super interesting to me as a psychologist, so I read that. That was for me kind of the aha moment where I realized, wow, okay, this is a unique opportunity to work with, in this field of data science, working with data of millions of users, behavioral data in some cases, depending obviously on the product. But if it's a dating app, it's very intimate data, you could say. It's people are really, they go there because they have very, very personal desires to meet someone, to form personal connections, and of course there's a lot of responsibility that you have when you work with this kind of data, and there's a lot of things that you cannot do, obviously, and data that you're not even processing or saving. But still, there's a lot of things that are really not only interesting from a curiosity perspective, but also there's a real opportunity to help people have meaningful experiences. And for me, maybe jumping one step ahead, but once I worked at Lavu, and the day-to-day work can be very sometimes it can be very technical and very unrelated. Like it's you don't always feel this connection to the users of the product. It's you're working with some, you're working with a data warehouse, you're working with some BI tools, you're working define like setting your OKRs. All of this has nothing to do with what your users are doing. But for me, the best moments were always when I heard feedback from users that told us, hey, I know your app. I met my partner through your app, or we got married and we met through your app, and we're expecting a kid now, and things like that. These stories, that was when I knew I'm happy to contribute to that, basically.
Yeah. How important is it to remain close to the reason of the product, being within data and like you say, the numbers? How important is it to remember why you're doing what you're doing in that team?
So I would say, of course, it's great if you work at a place and for a product that you personally identify with, because that gives you motivation. But I think I don't know if that's always possible. I don't know if you can always, or if it's completely necessary that you would say, okay, this is my personal passion as well as it is my job. In the end, it's also a job. But what I would say should always be the case is you need to have a connection, build a connection, and maintain a connection to the people who use your product. You need to understand what they're doing if you're working with data, because in the end, that's working in analytics. I believe what our job is really to understand the data and understand what's behind the data and how, why we're seeing the patterns that we're seeing. It's not just producing some numbers and producing some results, something that we hand off to our stakeholders and tell them to figure it out. But I think the real value we can provide as data analysts is if we understand how that data is being produced, like what goes into what kind of behavior goes into actually producing this data, and then also finding some insights. There's this famous word, like people throw it around, insights. I want insights, but what is it? But I think insight is really if you understand what the data means. If you understand, okay, this means the people who are using our product, they're trying to achieve something that they currently can't because that feature is not really working for them, or they don't understand it, and there's something that we could do better. There's something like, once I understand the problem that our users have or customers have, I can come up with ideas what could be better, how we could make it better, and then bring that to our to our business users, to our business stakeholders, whether that's in product development, in marketing, and sales, whatever it is. But I think this is the biggest value we can provide as analysts working in analytics, and to do that, you need to have this connection. You need to understand what the users of your product, what they do, basically. And so I think you need to move outside of just the pure data realm. You need to use the product yourself. You need to maybe talk to users. You need to join, if there's some user research team maybe at your company, people that actually conduct interviews with real users, you need to join those, or you can. I mean, those are all good things to do to better understand how that data that you're looking at is actually being produced.
How, in your experiences, maybe some stories you can tell of bringing the data team closer to the business team, what kind of successful processes, or what have you implemented, for example, to help this facilitate this?
Very good question. I think so there are a couple of things I can think of. And one is something that maybe every data person by themselves can do, and one is something that is more an organizational question that as data leader maybe can help set up processes. But I think as a data person, even if you're the only data person, or maybe especially if you're the only data person in a company, or if maybe the processes and the setup is not the right way for you, you can still get closer to the business by just talking to all kinds of different business people. Reach out and ask them to tell you about their work. So I can go to a marketing manager, even though maybe I'm not tasked with, hey, build a dashboard for marketing, but I can, in the old days of the real office, you could just walk over, you can meet them at the coffee machine. But even now, you can send them a Slack message, say, hey, I'm really curious to understand how you're working. Maybe we can have a coffee chat and maybe just explain me a bit about what is it that you do, and understand how other people in different parts of the business do their job, to understand how persons run marketing campaigns, how they do their sales, how they build the products, whatever it is. And the more you do that, the more you understand about how your business works, and also you build relationships, which is very important as well, because those will help you, to later work together with these other colleagues in your company. But I think as a data person, the more you understand about how the business works, and this means, of course, internally, how people work together, but also basically the one question, how does your company make money? If you can really answer that question, that gives you superpowers as a data analyst, because then you know exactly where the levers are, which then you can evaluate any request that you get in terms of how much impact can I create here? How high is the value of this analysis, of this data, of this report or dashboard that I can build? Does it have an impact on the way that we make money, basically? That's ultimately the goal of a business. So that's the thing that I think everyone can do. Reach out, just really informally. It doesn't have to be a big project. Just talk to people and try to understand what their job is. And the other thing, as a data leader, what has worked for me is if you have a bigger data team, or analytics team, like we have now with 7 people. At Lavu, our team was even a bit bigger. You can, what works really well if you have people dedicated to certain business functions. So data people, data analysts dedicated. And that means that they can really sit kind of embedded in a business team. So in a product development team, for example, or in a marketing team. And that can go as far as we have it now at Komoot, where we have these cross-functional product development teams that consist of a product manager, of course, and then Android engineers, iOS engineers, backend engineers, and product designer, QA, and a data analyst. And that data analyst is a full, member of that product team, same as the designer or the engineer, and they take part in all of the sprint plannings and retrospectives and all of the rituals of the team. And they get also all of their they define all of their projects and their priorities together with that team, and not from it's not dictated by a central data team. So they would report functionally, they would report into the data team and to me in this case, but cross-functionally, or in terms of their actual work, that like what are the tasks that they work on and what are their priorities, that's decided in the business team. And I think this works really well because the business team knows best what's important to them, and they develop. The big benefit for the data analysts in this case is they develop a lot of expertise about this business domain. This is exactly what I talked about before. It really forces you to and empowers you as a data analyst to learn about, to think about how to improve this part of our business, in this case the product, maybe the sales operations, whatever it is that you're working on. And And it moves you from being, a person's if you sit in a central data team, what often happens is that you're kind of waiting for requests coming in. You're not really waiting because usually there's a long backlog of requests. So usually you'd have to pick from a long backlog of requests. And every time that happens, you don't really understand a lot of the context. And then it's really hard to prioritize, because to even do that, you have to understand, okay, what's the impact? You have to talk again to these stakeholders. And so there's a lot of back and forth, and it can be really tiring and not so rewarding. And with the setup of embedded data analysts or other data folks in the business teams, it puts them into a position where they can be much more proactive. They can decide, or they can help, together with, let's say, the product managers or the engineers, decide on what are the most, impactful initiatives to work on. And, when there are new features that are being discussed, for example, from the beginning on, they can contribute to, okay, if we want to build this, we need this kind of tracking data to be able to, evaluate it. We want to test it, so they can design A/B tests for it. And then if there's a rollout of that feature, they can build, some monitoring right away. So you can answer, like you start with a very different mindset. If you have data, as part of your, let's say, product development, for example, from the very beginning, instead of, okay, now we built this feature and now we're going to the analytics team or the data team and ask them, like, how is it doing? Yeah, this is then usually you will not get a really good answer. So yeah, I think it's useful for the business, and it's really rewarding for the data people who work in this kind of setup. That's my experience.
And to maybe think it the other way, there's data is becoming more and more, the value of data is becoming more and more apparent. More people want to invest. There's not enough data professionals out there at the moment. How are we facilitating it the other way? So product managers, product designers, Android developers to be more knowledgeable about the data infrastructure and using those tools. What are we doing as an industry, as companies, to support that direction?
Yeah. So, I mean, I would kind of put that under the whole category of, well, you can either call it self-service or data democratization, or, making data available to the whole organization, basically. And I would see this as kind of the complement to that first part, what I described now as, the data analyst taking that very active role in contributing insights and recommendations and really shaping the strategy. That's the one piece of work that we can do. And the other piece is kind of building a platform that enables everyone to work with data, usually in a different way. So I would say the difference is that there are much more guardrails. If you or there should be more guardrails. If you want to empower the whole organization or non-technical stakeholders, people who maybe don't have it as their full-time job, to work with data. I don't even want to say that they're not technical, because a lot of these people are quite technical. A lot of these people actually have some, data skills, but it's not their full-time job. So you wanted to make it easier for them. So that the one piece of that is you need to, or I would say a couple of pieces. So you need to have the right tools, but that's usually not the big problem, that are easier to use. So you don't require people to write a SQL or Python code. You don't require people to know all of the details of where to find the right data. So there are tools for that. The bigger part of the project for a data team there is to make the data available in the right format, the right shapes, and make sure that it's clean and reliable and matches all of the aligned definitions that you have. So if people look at a piece of data, at a metric, for example, they can find a definition and they know that this is the same way that everybody who looks at this data in the company will understand it, basically. Yeah. So there is a lot of work to be done here for the data team that is from preparing data with tools like DBT, for example, making it available, monitoring data quality, things like that, but then also building documentation, data catalog, and making it easy for people across the organization to find that documentation. So when they're looking for a certain piece of data, they know not only where to find it, but also how it's being, all of the metadata basically that belongs to it. So how is this data being produced? How is it being calculated? All of the definitions that relate to that. And then there's the last piece, which is kind of education, is stakeholder education, data literacy education, where you can do that in some more formal programs, which we at our team currently, we haven't done that yet. We're not at that size yet where we like offer kind of formal courses or anything like that for stakeholders. What we do is we have open office hours basically, where everybody can drop in and say, okay, we have this self-service tool here, we have access to this data, but I don't really know how to use it. I don't really know how to look at the data and if I'm understanding this the right way. And so this is one easy way that we currently provide, where we kind of provide some hands-on support for people who actually come with some data questions they technically they're able to answer in a self-serve way, but they just don't know how yet. But I think if you're maybe a bit more advanced in that journey, you can start definitely building some more formal education programs for new people who join the company to get onboarded into the tools, as well as understanding the different data sources, different data sets and metrics and things that they can look at, and how to work with that.
Where does in this process, where does the power of storytelling come into play and being able to interpret the data?
Yeah.
Where do we find this?
I would say this is more a skill of a really strong data analyst, is that they are able to when I talk about insights, it's really in the end you need to shape that into a story or some kind of a recommendation, a way that you can bring that to other people, to business stakeholders, maybe to your management, whoever it is, to help them make better decisions. And so that's the goal of a data team. I think our data team's mission is to help the whole organization make the best decisions possible. And that's I think like most teams have something around that. But if you just deliver some data again, it doesn't tell you what decision I should make. I need to give you the context and tell you, okay, this is what I like, this is what I found in the data, this is what I'm seeing there, and this is what it means if you take this action now. This is the expected outcome. If you take this action, that's the expected outcome. You tell them, you paint them basically a story and a scenario, different scenarios, and based on your best knowledge and the things that about the goals of the organization, the scenario that is probably the most desired outcome. And by putting together this these different data points into a bigger picture, that's the story that you're telling, is basically what does the data mean, and what does my decision have, what impact can I have with a decision, with different decisions that I can take, and what's the best one in this case. So this is something, and this includes, for example, also data visualization. As a really important piece for data storytelling, is how you visualize data it's easy to manipulate data in the visualization, so to hide certain facts, or to be dishonest in some way. So you should not do that. So you should be honest, and you should show all the data, but you should also direct the attention and the focus towards the things that are most important. And that's a big part of, the visual storytelling with data. And there is a huge skill here. And people, if you can just do a quick chart, that's fine. And everybody can do that now with a self-serve tool. But to produce a data visualization that you can put on a slide and you can show it to your CEO, and they will immediately understand, okay, that's the thing that's kind of the takeaway that is important here, and this is the decision, or this is the the thing that I can do with that. That's really the power of good data storytelling, and it's something that you can work on. You can learn as a data analyst for many years, and you can become a real expert in that.
Yeah. How far off do you think we are from being fully removed from gut feeling decisions?
I'm not sorry. I'm not sure what if you think that the goal is to be fully removed from gut feeling decisions, because I don't think that's the goal. I think I'm not a big fan of the term data driven, even though I might use it myself sometimes, because that to me sounds as if data, as if it's kind of an automated decision making, that it's all dictated by the data. I don't think that's the right approach, because that's also what I'm it's all about this context and bring this understanding, and as a good data analyst you can bring that context and that understanding, but you probably other people that maybe are the decision makers in this case, because oftentimes the data folks are not the decision makers, have additional context, and they should take that data into consideration, and they should really probably, I would say, a good data informed organization doesn't uses data for every decision. They don't make decisions without looking at the data. And if they make a decision that is exactly what would be indicated by the data, that's fine. But they can also do the other decision, and they know that. They know they make a conscious decision. They say, okay, the data is indicating that, but we have additional information, or maybe just gut feeling that things might change in the future, might be different. I mean, a good example is maybe when you look at forecasting. So a very common data task is when you have metrics that you're reporting to your CFO. They usually, you have to do a yearly planning or even longer, and so often as a data team you're tasked with producing forecasts. So how will these numbers develop over the next year? And it's a very common task for a data analyst. And basically what happened 3 years ago when COVID started, every forecast in the world broke. And a lot of forecasts are still kind of broken today, because it's really hard now to kind of extrapolate from what happened over the last 2 or 3 years to what will happen next year or in 2 years. And I think you have to be aware of that. I think you can still do forecasts, but kind of keeping some of this in mind, that, okay, well, let's say, for example, a lot of the online or digital businesses had a huge boom after COVID started. So 2021, 2022, there was a huge increase for a lot of e-commerce businesses. And if you would run a forecast, this would tell you we're going to the moon next year, but it didn't happen. And so I think it's healthy to combine kind of the data, what the data is telling you, with some common sense or gut feeling, or however you want to call it. And that's the value of a good experienced business person, or maybe a founder or someone who has a really strong idea about that's the product that I want to build. They should also trust that to a certain extent. They shouldn't, take data into consideration, but also, follow a vision that they have as well, I would say.
I think a decision by definition is choosing an outcome unaware of what might happen, and data doesn't predict the future. It just kind of detects patterns in the past, and as much information we can have still to make that decision. We could carry on for a long time. It's coming towards the end. One question I would love to put to you, Valentin, is what keeps you curious? What keeps you fascinated and continuing to follow your career in data?
So there are many things. I mean, I would say one thing is always when I discover something unexpected in the data. So of course now, after many years working in this field and working especially in similar industries, I've been working with mobile apps, and I've seen a lot of the same problems over and over again. So I kind of expect a lot of things. And what really excites me is when I find something that I didn't expect. So let me give you an example from komoot. I think I can share that as a very common metric that any digital business, I guess, looks at as a retention metric. So how much are users coming back over time after they initially sign up to your product, and you draw this as a retention curve that is kind of dropping very quickly at the beginning, and then it's kind of leveling off, or it's not leveling off, but it's the decline is getting slower over time. So once people stuck around for a certain time, they're less likely to to leave you, but you have this retention curve that starts at at the top, and it goes towards zero over a long time frame. And now, what is really what happens if you have a really good product that kind of increases in value over time, because the more people use the product, in our case, and I'm talking about komoot here, this app for outdoor adventures, the biggest value that we provide is inspirational content for other users, that basically they open the app and they can see, hey, there's amazing tours that I can do by hiking or bike up in my area maybe. And the more users we have, the more of this content we can actually produce and show to other users. So the amazing thing that we found is that we have retention curves that after several years start to go up again. They start forming a U shape, which is something that I didn't expect. Yeah, I thought that's kind of almost a necessity, that there's never going to be people that come back more after 3 years than they did after 2 years. But that's in fact what we've seen, and then you dig deeper and you try to understand, okay, who are these people and what brought them back, and can we do more of that? And of course, there's a lot that follows here, but I think those are kind of exciting moments for me when I discover something that a pattern in the data that kind of goes completely against my expectation, and that often also points you in a really interesting direction as well, that you should explore further. Yeah.
Awesome. The data is keeping you honest. Find the unexpected. Amazing. Well, yeah, thanks for your time today, Valentin, for your rich insights and your thoughts. I hope you've enjoyed today.
Oh yeah, I had a lot of fun. Thanks again. Was really nice.
Not at all. And obviously to the listeners, do check out Valentin's podcast as well. Analytics Anonymous. I'm sure we can put a link in to direct people. To the listeners, yeah, always drop your questions and feedback as usual, and we can maybe pick out some to be answered on future pods. Don't forget to like and share. It's been a great episode, so hopefully as many people as possible will listen and tune in. It's bye from us. Thanks once again, Valentin.
Yeah, thanks again, Matt, for the invitation, and thanks for everyone listening. And yeah, if you you want to look for Analytics Anonymous on your podcast app. And of course, I'm happy as well.
Yeah, we'll tag that in. Ciao for now.